happens when the government gives us money. Race to the top includes developing national standards, increasing charter schools, tying teacher pay to student outcomes and achievement, putting all students into a database, and taking over underachieving schools. And the data in that database will be shared with lots of people. These new standards could easily be incorporated into something called the No Child Left Behind Act, which was passed by President George W. Bush. Now, Texans can thank Governor Rick Perry for rejecting Race to the Top funds. Texas Commissioner of Education Robert Scott totally supported the governor's decision. In Texas, the governor appoints the Commissioner of Education. And Robert Scott happens to be very, very conservative, and I agree with him on most everything. However, there are a few things where there's need for improvement. The governor's office reported that while Texas was eligible for up to $750 million in Race to the Top funding, it would have cost the state taxpayers over $3 billion to realign our education system to conform to the U.S. Department of Education for vision for public education. Governor Perry has said that Texas could get back from Race to the Top as little as $75 per student, barely enough to fund our state's educational system for 2 measly days. Now, he didn't use the word, he said that's fine. Robert Scott pointed out that once federal money ran out, Texas would still be stuck paying for the programs implemented by Race to the Top. And we would also have been stuck with all the strings attached to the money, even though that money would have quickly dried up. On January 4th of 2010, Commissioner Scott also stated that the governor is absolutely right. Federal law prohibits many of the things they're requiring in this grant application, including, I might add, the creation of a nationwide student identifiable database with information about every child across the country, collected and disseminated all the way up to Washington, D.C. You have to know, Robert Scott said, No Child Left Behind prohibits that. So the president would be asking them to break the law. While all of the Race to the Top funds have now been granted to several states, the threat of a national curriculum is still alive and well. Note that should you move to one of the states that has accepted this money, your children will be subjected to the national curriculum designed by the federal government. Remember, what the federal government funds, the federal government controls. As my friends at Eagle Forum of Alabama have reported, the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, Joseph Califano, advised President Jimmy Carter in 1977 that any set of test questions that the federal government prescribed should surely be suspect as a first step toward a national curriculum. He went on to say in its most extreme form, a national control of curriculum is a form of a national control of ideas. That's pretty scary, if you ask me. This came from a federal bureaucrat. He went on to say, centralized standard-setting forces, local school boards of Eagle Forum of Alabama went on to say, centralized standard-setting forces, local school boards of education, and other taxpayers to relinquish their most powerful tools for school improvement. The control of academic content, standards, and testing through their local and state policymakers. The federal government will fund consortium testing development. Note that totaled $350 million this very month, which is a direct path to centralized or federalized testing. America has always recognized that parents have the ultimate authority over the education of their children through local control of education. National standards would be as far from parental control and local influence as possible. Imposition of national standards disempowers parents and teachers while empowering federal bureaucrats instead. At-risk students might suffer the most. A one-size one-size-fits-all approach leads to less individualized attention, less attention to struggling students, decreased emphasis on advanced work, and a dumbed-down curriculum. Now I would like to move on to my next topic, and that is about what is happening at the state level. As you probably already know, our legislature will convene on January 11th and adjourn on May 30th, 2011. While many votes will be cast throughout the 140 days of session, the most important vote of all will be the very first vote taken in the Texas House of Representatives. This vote will be taken as soon as they convene, as they must select a speaker to oversee the proceedings throughout the session. The current speaker is a Rhino, a Republican in name only. His name is Joe Straus. While he is a Republican, he was elected by votes from Democrats who convinced 11 Republicans to vote with them in favor of Joe Straus. As a reward for his votes, Speaker Straus gave plum committee chairmanships to Democrats and the Rhinos who supported him. The best news is that 3 of the Republicans who helped elect Joe Straus will not be here next session. One was appointed as a university president, and the other 2 got defeated in the primary for the error of their ways. One of the Rhinos who helped elect Joe Straus is Representative Rob Eisler of the Woodlands. I sat in his education committee many times. I have volunteered as Texas Eagle Forum's education liaison for the last 7 sessions, and I've moved to Austin so I can be in the Capitol every day lobbying on behalf of Texas Eagle Forum. I'm not paid for what I do, but the payback for this work is wonderful. It's worth my time. It's my golf, my tea parties with China cups, and golf. Now, Speaker Straus again appointed Rob Eisler as chairman of the Education Committee. Eisler is a witty and charming Princeton graduate who also served as a fighter pilot. He's one sharp guy. Unfortunately, his powerful position as a committee chair gives him the authority to decide which bills get a public hearing. It is at the committee level where many good bills die a sad death at the hand of the chairman. The Education Committee is unique because over 300 education bills are usually filed each session. Compared to other committees, this is very high. And this shows how much control is placed on education each legislative session. Most of the people who fill the audience are paid lobbyists who represent the teachers' unions and school administrators' associations. I'm often the only one with a voice on the opposite side of the bill and representing Texas Eagle Forum. Remember, I'm a volunteer, which means I'm not paid to be there, but I have just as much right to be heard as a paid lobbyist. And I want you to emphasize that the same goes for any of you. Anytime you decide to go to Austin to testify or just sign a witness affidavit on a bill, while the paid lobby dominates, citizens have those same constitutional rights to petition our government. Remember, whenever you pick up the phone or fax a legislator, you are lobbying. Whenever you write an email to an elected official, you are lobbying. And whenever you write a snail mail letter, you are lobbying. As many have said, government belongs to those who show up. Make no mistake, all of the liberals will be there too. Remember, Austin is a very liberal city. The Capitol is only a few blocks from the University of Texas campus, and the likes of Planned Parenthood and all of the homosexual organizations can rally tons of students to testify or sign witness affidavits in support of their issues. I've been there at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the stream is still coming if the committee is still meeting. Parents are usually home raising their kids and putting bread on the table, while the liberals change what is taught in our public schools. 2 issues will be of extra importance this session. First, after the wonderful victory over the adoption of outstanding social studies standards led by the conservative members of our State Board of Education last May, Some liberal legislators have threatened to file bills that would remove our elected State Board of Education